Hey folks, welcome to another episode of There's Just Something About Kansas City. We talk and have conversations about the people, places, and things that make this such a great place to live. And my guest today is the one and only Bobby Lee Bell. And he is
one and only?
The one and only Bobby Lee Bell, Pro Football Hall of Famer. I mean, the accolades just go on and on and on. You're the 66 on the top 100 greatest football players to ever play in the National Football League, which is just incredible. Of course, you're, like I said, you're in the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio. You're in the Chiefs Hall of Fame, and you've just you've had a journey to get here, Bobby, and that's what we want to talk a little bit about today.
Well, God has been good to me, man. I tell you, it's been, I don't know, little young kid, didn't have too much to do down in Shelby, North Carolina,
Yeah, let's talk about Shelby a little bit. What was that like? What's your earliest memory of Shelby? Now, I know your mom and dad, Pink and Zanny. You're going to take you way back.
That's a long ways back.
It sure is.
In fact, 83 years back.
Yes, it was
That's
83 years ago. Yes.
Yeah, knock on wood. Come over here and let me hit your head.
Go ahead. No. Yeah. You've always known that about me anyway, so.
No, it's been, God, like I said, God's been good, man. No one anticipate that Bobby Bell from Shelby, North Carolina, was six-man football. What I guess there's maybe 9,000 people in the whole city, counting the dogs, cats, and all that stuff. But really, just think about it. I look back, and I think about this all the time, now since. In high school, the school that are all segregated, 168 in the whole school from first grade to.
And it was segregated at that time.
It was all segregated, Had no idea, Can you imagine? In 1959 was the first time I really started playing with white kids.
Wow.
That was at Minnesota, see.
Right.
But never play against them. I played with them, I played with them some, but never you actually have a team together.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
Gives you chills when you think about it a little bit, doesn't it?
Because you think about it, people bring it up, because like I said, I just turned 83, a 3 or 4 days ago, and I think about it, 83, I look around, in the last year or two, I lost about 10, 11 guys that I played against and friends and my brother and Pam, my wife. It just, God, it blows your way.
Yeah, it does. As you age, it's tough.
And I look back, I'm going back to like the Super Bowl, God almighty. I met, Jim Brown was out there and I talked to, Jim and Dave Wilcock, and next thing I know, two months later, both of them was gone.
Yeah, it's amazing how. And you can look back on the six-man football, and I think you eventually went to 11-man football there at Cleveland High School, right?
That last year, yeah.
The last year you went to 11-man football, and the amazing thing is you played quarterback. Okay, and we will talk about that as we go along here. But you actually played quarterback for a football team. You made All-State as the quarterback.
God, yeah, we had 6 guys. We actually didn't have about 9 guys on the whole team. No, I think we had 11 maybe. We didn't have enough to practice
scrimmage
against each other.
Yeah, that's absolutely amazing. So now when you're being recruited, what people don't realize in this day and age, a lot of the schools below the Mason-Dixon line were still all segregated. And you lived in North Carolina, and I'm sure the head football coach in North Carolina was salivating to get you to go to North Carolina, but he couldn't because North Carolina was still a segregated football team the whole University of North Carolina was segregated at that time.
Basically it was, Only way that I can get to go to North Carolina, I'd be waiting on tables.
Yeah,
so,
gosh.
No, that's going back to that, late Jim Taylor was a coach for North Carolina. And,
he's a great Green Bay Packers fullback, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So what happened is that, he came over and watched me play in the All-Star game. And when I played in the All-Star game, they had two great quarterbacks. So I'm sitting on the bench, and the coach finally at the first of the quarter, I guess the first quarter, in the middle of it, he said, "Boal, you halfback." I said, "I'll play. Go out and play.
Whatever you want."
We got two great quarterbacks in front of me, so I goes in at the game. I never came out of the game. I got most valuable player of the game. I scored a couple of touchdowns, and that's when late Jim Taylor, and I'm trying to think of who the other coach from Notre Dame, I think it was, Michigan State or something, saw me.
Duffy Darty, maybe?
Yeah, saw me play, in the game, and they go, wow. And so late Jim Taylor.
And you were playing halfback at that time.
Yeah, halfback. And late Jim Taylor looked at me and go, wow. And he ended up calling Coach Warmack at Minnesota.
At the University of Minnesota. So North Carolina and the schools in the South can't take you, because they're so good. Did any of the HBCUs, the historically black colleges and universities, did they reach out to you at that time? Because I know that's where a lot of, we're going to get to the NFL. That's where a lot of those players who ended up with the Kansas City Chiefs, as a matter of fact, ended up coming from.
Well, like A&T, Grambling, Morgan, Prairie View, I had people call me, but also a lot of small schools, around North Carolina called me. But at that time, my dad, never finished school and said, and I looked, I don't know what to do, So I figured I might end up at A&T or either Grambling or something.
Yeah, North Carolina A&T or
Grambling. So
right.
I go, well, okay. Next thing I know, late Jim Taylor called my principal and said, can you help in the film work and stuff like that on Bobby Bell? He said, film work, yeah. He said, no, we don't have no film work. He said, but I can go to the Shelby Star and get a couple of pictures. He said, if you can get some film work, I'd like to,
see
him and send him to Minnesota. And the coach wanted going, man, let's see something. I don't know. I can't take your word for it. He said, hey, man, if the kid can play ball.
Yeah. And how big were you then? Do you remember coming out? You 6'3"? Were you already?
I was about 6'2", 6'3". Yeah, about
okay,
6'2",
you're right
6'3".
in there.
Yeah,
right.
I'm right in there. And, that was it.
Yeah, so I guess did you go visit the University of Minnesota before you signed the scholarship?
Well, what happened is that we didn't have no pictures, nothing like that. And the coach at Minnesota going, wait a minute, we can't just take this guy. And late Jim Taylor said, if you got one scholarship, give it to him. He said, he's going to make your team, Big Ten. He said, also, he'd take you to Rose Bowl and all this. And coach go, well, if he's that good, man, I'd like to see this kid. But the funny thing, he didn't want to take his word for it. So somebody called the white coach at the Shelby High and asked him, would he look at me, if he don't send me over there and let him just look at me. And that's what I did.
Yeah.
I went over there and I was going around, wow, this is great. High school, never been on the. He saw me throw the ball, pass the ball, did some running, And at that time, I didn't realize it, but they had the Shelby High School had the track.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we didn't have no track. And so they had one player out there practice, running, And after we got through working out and stuff like that, he said, let me see you run. She said, kid over there, he's getting ready to take off there. He said, go with him. Run around the track with him. And I'm going to watch you. He said, you try to keep up with him. And it took off and ran. I didn't know anything. I was running around.
You just took off after him, right?
Yeah, right behind him,
Yep.
And finally, the kid went around, He kept going, I'm right behind him, looking at the coaches. Coach kept waving, kept waving. And right at the last, I didn't know it. He was a mile. The last lap, the coach looked at me. He said, hey, come on.
Take off after
Take off. And I go, wow. I pull up behind him, and he said, he kept saying, waving his hand. I passed him. Come on back, man.
This is for the mile.
I didn't realize everybody in the stand had stopped and started looking. And when I came back in, I said, wow, did I do all right? He goes, did you do all right? He said, that kid you just passed going over there? I said, yeah, what about it? He said he was the state championship
In the mile. Wow.
And I go, okay.
Coach, you want me to run track now or do you want me to play football?
Yeah. I just beat him. That's how he said, I looked up there and everybody stopped working out and they started watching. I was just, when he said, come on, I looked at the kid and passed him up. Yeah. Come on.
So you never really had to run the 40 up to that point ever, right?
No.
Well, today it's all, timing in 40
and
all that sort of stuff.
We didn't have no clock.
You didn't have a stopwatch, did you? So you decided to do the mile instead.
God, man.
Try to forget. So then Murray Warmath has one scholarship left at the University of Minnesota. He gives it to you. And then the rest is history at the University of Minnesota. Yeah. So you had a great career at the University of Minnesota.
Well, yeah, I never been on. Can you imagine? I never been on a plane. Had one Scott went there, and I looked at it. They had all. I had never seen that many people. First time got there.
Right, the campus had more like 5 times the number of people as your hometown.
Well, yeah, it had 5 times. You're right. We had, I think, it was about 50,000 people at the campus. And I'm going like, wow. And I called my dad. I said, Dad, if they give me a scholarship, man, can I come here? Can I go? Without even thinking. I said, oh, yeah. And my dad said, yeah. He said, you want to go there? If they give a scholarship, go. He said, go for it.
Yeah.
And I just walked around, just kept looking, man. Never seen it.
Now, how long did it take? And before we do that, I think this is when they gave it to, I think, your mom and dad, I think, who worked really hard to make ends meet for your family in Shelby, North Carolina. I think your dad gave you a watch.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Didn't he give you a watch?
What happened there is I told him, I went home, got home.
You went home. You told Minnesota yes.
Yeah,
okay.
I said, yeah. I mean, if they give me I said, I'll take it, I went back home. So when the time for me to go back to university, and they told me it's cold. They said it's supposed to be cold. So I packed up some winter clothes and stuff like that. I said, should I bring it? They said, no, you can ship that stuff. He said, you got plenty of time when I went back in the summer. So when my dad finally took me to the airport and put me on the plane to come back up to Minnesota, he said, son, he said, I know you want to see the world and everything. He said, I'm going to give you this. I got something for you. He reached in his pocket, never had it, pulled out a gold Bulova watch and gave it to me. He said, here, I want you to be on time. He said, I'm going to give you my last name, Bell. He said, don't screw it up.
Yeah, right.
He said something else.
Yeah, sure, absolutely did. Yeah. Remember, we're on a podcast. You can say whatever you want, Bobby. So you're good to go.
Oh, he says, don't,
Sure.
And I go, yes, sir. And as I was getting ready to walk away from him, he said, now, if you still want to see the world, don't you come back here.
Wow.
If you want to see the world. And I thought, wow, he kicked me out of the house and all this stuff. It took me a while to figure out what it really means. I figured it out when I got to college, man.
Yeah, he did not want you to come back and have the life that he had.
Yeah.
Yeah, he wanted you to be.
He said, if you want to see the world, you cannot stay here. Like some of the kids are leaving, they come back there and they're standing on the corner shooting pool and stuff like that. He said, don't come back here. And that's wow, it hurt me. I thought maybe he kicked me out. But he was right.
Yeah, he was. That was, and you followed that tenet the whole way for the rest of your life.
When I got there, and the thing about it, is that when I got to Minnesota, and I really figured it out. And my school was that small, and to be in a class, I had to make adjustments. People didn't realize I had to make a big adjustment. I had to learn. I spent most of my time in the freshman library, because the coach, the books they gave me in my school, and I was competing against kids all over the world, all over the country, and I'm going like this. And one of my class I walked in was 200 in it. That was more people than we had in the school.
Right.
And I had another class was 5,000.
Where did they do that one in the gym?
No, that was in the auditorium.
Oh, wow.
And I go, wow. I'm sitting in there going, looking around, and you go, wow. I had to stay in the library, freshman library. I was in the freshman library every night just about, trying to keep up with the other kids, because a lot of the kids was that they had they had books that they was studying in college, in high school. Mm-hmm. High school didn't do that to me.
Right.
They just give me the basic stuff.
And while we're on the education part, before we get to the football part, you left the University of Minnesota and you were 3 courses short of graduating from the University of Minnesota. But you had promised
I had
your
about
dad
3.
and
It
mom.
was about 3 or 4 credits short,
Okay.
And it was a class that I was supposed to take the year before my senior year,
Mm-hmm.
and it was during the season, and I would miss 30 minutes of practice if I took that class. And the coach said, "No, you can take it later." And I never took that course.
Oh, but you did.
And yeah, I did. I went in the spring, my senior year. I was All-American, everything. I played in all the pro games. So I forgot about it. So I got in, boom, played pro. And I go, wow. I never
Never
looked
thought
back.
about it. Yeah.
And I told my dad when I left, he said, "You going to this big school?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "Dad, I'm going to get my degree." And he goes, "Yes, I'm going to get my degree." And I had something to prove to myself. And also, when I went there, I also went for Bobby Bell, but I also went for my brother, sister, my dad, mom, and everybody in Shelby.
Yeah.
I could not let them down. The people, the black families and stuff, I cannot let them. I said, when I leave, I said, I'm going for them also.
You took the whole city on your shoulders with you.
I took it on the whole city. It took me a while to figure it out, but I ended up, that's what I did.
Yeah. And then you went back how many years later and got those 3 credits?
Well, when I turned 74.
It's almost 10 years ago.
Yes.
Wow. And so,
I looked at, in my man cave, looked up on the wall, I say, I got everything. And I said, "Hell, God Almighty." I said, something's missing. I promised my dad that I get my degree.
Yeah.
So I went back. I said, I'm gonna get my degree. I'm going to get it. It's 74. So when I go to the games up there all the time. In fact, I also have a scholarship, $1 scholarship.
Yeah, that's right. You did.
And everything's there. I mean, I played All-American. I did the Rose Bowl, Big Ten champ, come in third, and all. I got all this stuff on the board. I came in third at the
Heisman Trophy. Absolutely, yeah.
And I looked up on the board and I go, wow, man. I looked up here and I said, man, I got to get my dad the degree. So one day I was at the football game, so I asked one of the guys, I said, "Hey, I got to check. I got to get my degree. I got to figure out what." And I told one of the guys. The guy went back. It took him a month to figure it out because everything's done in pencils.
Pencil, yeah. They couldn't even find your files, could they?
They went back. They did, though. They found it. They said, "Oh, my gosh, man, you had 3 credits here. That one course you needed." I go, "Oh, yeah." I said, "God," I said, "I'm getting it."
So how'd they let you take it?
Well, at that time, now you can take it
online. Yes.
I was going back. I was going to go back to school for a quarter.
That'd have been fun.
Yeah. So, the guy, they called me up and said, "Oh, man, you can do this." They said, "Nothing." I said, "Well, really?" "Yeah." And I asked them, I said, "Okay, how much is it going to cost me?"
I don't think they were going to charge you a dime of credit, were they? Zero.
Zero. They said, "This is part of your scholarship."
That is awesome.
And I said, "No." I said, "No, I'll pay for it." "No." They said, "No." So when I ended up doing is taking 3 or 4 credits. I took more than that,
Yeah.
And I went back online, I said, "Oh, this is crazy." To do it online, I never did it like this, And I had one thing, I had some stuff I had to do online, and I said, "Well, I don't know how to do this." So I called Jane Martin from the Chiefs, I said, "I got to do this point thing, all this stuff." She said, "Oh, that's easy, Chief. Let me explain it to you. It's easy, Bob. You can do it." I said, No. I said, "I'm coming to your office."
I'm going to do it there.
We'll do it there on your computer.
That is
so
awesome.
Let me do it. She said, well, you can come up here. And I came there. It was, oh, God, I can't remember now. It was about the, I don't know. It was, and I did it, you know. It was long, you know. It was longer than what it's supposed to be.
Sure.
And I sent it off to the teacher, you know. And she said, I said, I know it's long. He said, but I had to get it into you. She looked at it and she said, we're going to use the whole thing.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That is great.
And I ended up, I never made the dean list. I took enough credit to make the dean.
To make the dean's list.
I made the dean list. And all I wanted was my degree. And so when I said, did I pass? Did I get my degree? They oh, yeah. And I get a call from the president of the university. And they said, yeah, Mr. Bell said, I'd like to have you. He said, hey, you get your degree. He said, but we want you to walk. I said, no, I don't need it. I just want my degree, man. Said, I'm not coming back up there putting a robe on. I just want my degree. He said, nope.
Nope, you're coming.
You come in.
What was that like for you? To put that robe on and walk across the stage like the other students? After all those years.
Hey, man, it was nice. It was unbelievable. I mean, I have never, when he said it, and the president said, I am the keynote speaker. The place was packed. And I got my robe, and he said, you got to come in at least 3 or 4 hours more early. I said, for what? He said, we have about 30, 40 newspapers from all over the United States and world. They want to interview you. I said, well, I'm not going to sit down and interview all these guys. So what I said, okay, I'll come in. I came in 2 hours, 3 hours before all this thing started. And I sat at the table, and they had them all. I had the mics up, you know. I said, I'll do it one time, you know. I did it for them. And when I did it, you know, it just blew me away.
Yeah, and you still had Shelby, North Carolina wrapped around your shoulders, on top of your shoulders at that point. That had to make you feel good. And I'm sure you had to flash back to mom and dad and the watch and dad and the whole thing. It just
so when I end up sitting I was sitting there, all these people, and when it got to my group, they wanted me to go first, and I said, no, I'm not going first. So who was a lady girl in front of me went first, and then I was second. And when I came up second, you remember Sandy Stevenson, the quarterback?
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
His sister works there. She came to the mic, and she started calling off names. She's going to start calling off names. And when I walked up on the stage and I was second, she looked, you know, she went like, oh, my gosh, my brother is here.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we all had to stick together because we didn't have 5 blacks at the university playing football. And she never called my name. She said, my brother is here, and started reading her things. And never called my name. And I walked up on the stage. I got a standing more. Everybody in the place stood up. It took me 10, 15 minutes to get across the stage.
Wow.
Every professor that was in the group in robes and stuff, they came down and they shook my hand as I went. It took me 15, 20 minutes to get off the stage.
Wow. That's incredible. Well deserved, too, at that point.
You know, and...
what an inspiration, too, for people.
Oh, hey, guess what I had on my wrist?
Your watch.
My gold watch.
You bet you did.
It still runs. I still have it. And I looked up and said, Dad, I'm on time. And everybody going, what was that supposed to be? That's, you know, my gold watch.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know, that I got calls from all over. I got plaques on my wall, too. And I'm thinking about it, you know. Is that at the New York Times? Big spread.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. They did a big story. It went all over the world. I had people writing me, calling me from all over the world. And I had people calling me saying, hey, man, I'm going back to school. You did it at 74, you know. And I just, oh God, I mean, I think about, and I think about my dad, my mom, I didn't realize that we were poor until I got left, because my mom and dad we had food,
Yeah.
had clean clothes, house clean,
Yep.
you know.
And your dad, your dad picked cotton, and your mother was a housekeeper, right? A little bit?
My dad worked at the textile mill.
Textile mill?
The people that kind of raised him, and what he did, worked at the textile mill where they take cotton, turn it into yarn and
Yes,
stuff, and
right.
they ship it all over the world. And a long time I started working with my dad when I was 12 years old. I started going up. I asked him, I said, why you get up at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning? He said, oh, I got to go by the office. He cleaned the office. He chauffeured the car. And we never owned a car. He always had a car there, but I thought it was our car. But it was a company car. It was a company car.
Yeah.
And-
All the things they did for you,
Yeah.
And you paid them back.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, you certainly paid them back.
So, that's when I was 12 or 13. I said, can I go with you? I want to see what they did at work. He cleaned the office,
Yeah.
And I go up there and I said, oh, I help him. And found when I did it for about 5, 6 months, the guy said, one of the guys said, well, we need to pay him. And I never forget, I got a check in the mail for I think it was $12.
Wow. Yeah.
I got a check for $12. I couldn't believe it.
Absolutely amazing. And I think going with your dad to work a little bit gave you the motivation to do what you eventually did with your life when you left Shelby, North Carolina, right?
Well, yes, and because what happened is that once I got that $12, I said, wow, it's my money. I'm earning it, And then I wanted to do more work. And every time something come out, an extra work, 14 years old, I could do it. They made me clean up the trash bin. Then they said, hey, can I do something else? And then I got a lawnmower and started cutting grass around the mill and stuff, chopping. Oh, God. I went out to the country club where the Dovers live, cut their yard. And that's when I watched them play golf.
Yeah.
On the golf course in Shelby. And I always asked my dad, I said, Dad, hey, you think I ever be able to play golf like that? At that time, blacks couldn't even play on the golf course.
Right.
And then I turned around and asked him, you think it's ever possible to live on the golf course? And my dad always, oh, yeah, son, you can do it. You can do it. Yeah,
Right.
He kept saying that.
Never. He always kept that dream alive. He kept your hope alive. Is what he did.
And he's always said that, And so when I got the first check, I want to work more and more and more. And when I got to enough money for a $100 bill, I go get a $100 bill. I wouldn't break it. Wow. And that's how I started off. And since I was 13, then I got another job, car hopping with barbecue, Red Bridge Barbecue.
Red Bridge Barbecue, yes.
I started doing that, I couldn't even get the tray up there hard. I made money off the tips. And I got tip money before I got a check because they asked me for my Social Security number. I didn't have it. So for 8 months,
wow.
I didn't ever give my Social Security. They said, well, you got to give us the Social Security number so we can give you a check.
Give you a check. Yeah.
I was making enough of money off my tips, and stuff like that.
I think there's one, and when you're there at the barbecue, you still had the segregated water fountains. You still couldn't go in the front door.
No.
Right? You had to go in the back door. You had to do all those things. And you overcame all those. You're a lifeguard. I think one of your other the other thing you really loved was the sport of baseball, and you were actually drafted by the Chicago White Sox to play baseball.
Well, they didn't draft me, but they saw me play because I was a better baseball player in Charlotte, in a little black
tournament.
Tournament. They saw me and they came up and asked me, said, "Hey, you think you want to play baseball?" I said, "Man," I said, "What? I don't know these people." And they said, "Well, we with the organization of White Sox, we'd like to send you to our farm league, play baseball." He said, "We think you can play." And I go, "Wow!" I ran home, told my dad, I said, "Dad, I'm gonna play baseball." He said, "I thought you wanted to go to school, a big school, and all that stuff, and then play football." I said, "Yeah, but they want me, He said, well, "Why are you gonna do that?" I said, "I can go make some money and help you out." He said, "We don't need no help." He said, "Boy, you go play baseball. You're not going to go to school like you wanted to."
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "No." I said, oh, I begged him, you know. He said, no, you think about it. He said, it's going to be up to you. So I decided, okay. But I'm glad I did wait because they gave me an opportunity to, you know, see me play football, and I got a chance to go.
Yeah.
I wouldn't change that, you know.
Yeah. Oh, well, obviously, I don't think you would change that at this point. You certainly made the right decision. When you're at Minnesota, they switched to the defensive line. So what were your thought? What was your thought process when they did that?
Well, I went there. I was a quarterback, you know. I played, you know. And I asked him when I got there, Coach Boal, I said, the baseball team was the national champs at one time, Minnesota national champ. I said, can I play baseball too? He goes, oh, yeah, you can play baseball. So my freshman year as a quarterback, I mean, you know,
and the freshmen couldn't play varsity in those days.
Yeah, you couldn't play. I ran the other team plays against the varsity.
Against the varsity guys, yeah.
And he used to get on me about, they give me the play, and I said, okay, this way. And when they run the plays, I'm the quarterback. I said, hey, I'm going. He said, run the play right. I said, this is the way it goes, Coach.
That's what happens if I can play quarterback.
I said, this is where, I said, no, but I saw this. He said, you're not running it right. And they look at the play, and they said, well, I guess he did run it right. They couldn't stop me.
Right.
You know, they couldn't stop me, so, you know.
Yeah, that's
it's crazy, you know.
So when they decide, was it spring football they decided to switch you?
Well, yeah, they had the spring ball came up. I figured they was going to do it, you know. So I go, okay. When I came up spring ball, you know, I go, wait a minute, I didn't see my name at the quarterback, you know. But I went up. He come up to when he was off. He said, Boal said, I have decided that I want my greatest players all on the same team at the same time.
Defense,
offense, you know.
I see. To go both ways, yeah.
We went both ways
right.
On the field at the same time. And I said, oh, yeah. And he said, yeah, I'm switching you to offensive tackle and defensive end. I said, Coach, I never played that. I said, well, are you kidding me? I thought he was kidding. Nope, he didn't.
Wow.
But that's what he did.
Yeah.
He switched me. I said, hey, Coach, I ain't, you know, in my mind, I'm not going home. I can't let my parents down and say, hey, I can't, you know. I play in it. I told him, I said, you coach me, you know. I can play.
I'll play wherever you want. Yeah. So you go, let's see, you're a two-time All-American, Outland Trophy winner, third in the Heisman voting back in those days. It was incredible. 1960 national champs, played in the 61 and 62 Rose Bowls. You know, your legacy there is incredible because you do endow a chair at the University of Minnesota, and it's or a scholarship at the University of Minnesota, and so you certainly left your legacy there at the University of Minnesota, didn't you?
Well, yeah, you know, the thing is, I go up there every year. I go up there. In fact, I already made arrangements to go up there this year. You know, I'm going up I'll probably go 3 or 4 times, but in November, Kansas City's playing up there.
Yes, right. Playing the Vikings.
And Minnesota's playing Michigan on Saturday.
On Saturday.
So I'll fly up there Saturday and spend the night and go to the Vikings game.
Yeah.
So, but, yeah, it's oh, God, man. I'm going back, you know, when they switched me, you know, I just say, oh, God, this is not going to work. But the thing is, though, Sandy Stevens was a black quarterback. Mm-hmm. And he was the first black All-American quarterback.
Right.
And when I got on the team, it moved me to tackle. I played tackle, defensive end, and also I centered the ball.
Yeah, you're a long snapper for a long time. You ended up doing that with the Chiefs as well.
Yeah, a lot of people didn't know that.
Yeah, I know. It's just incredible. Okay, so now we're going to go. Okay, so now you're coming out of school, and now pro football is calling. In those days, you had the NFL and the AFL. Okay,
Canada
and the Canadian Football League, and they were all separate leagues. They were not joined at the time. So how did that work for you? Who from the NFL side came after? And of course, we know at least that the Kansas City Chiefs were after you as well, as long as probably some other teams were as well.
Well, the Vikings. I was drafted by the Vikings. I think it was second round, everybody thought I was going to go because I was all American there. And
At University of Minnesota, yeah.
and all that. And everybody was just saying, you remember Sid Hartman?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Okay, Sid, hell, man, that's it. Because I got to tell you the story about Sid Hartman, though. Sid Hartman would not interview me.
The reason?
In college, my freshman. And the thing about Sid Hartman, was that Sid said, Coach Woman, why would you waste a scholarship on a kid down in North Carolina that you never seen play, and you got all these kids in Minnesota, Wisconsin, around here, that, you can give them a scholarship. Why would you waste it? And the coach never would talk to him about it, And when I came there and started playing my freshman year, Sid Hartman would never interview me because I went up to him. He interviewed all them other freshmen and stuff.
Yeah.
And Sid, I asked him one day, I said, Sid, why don't you interview me? Why don't you ever interview me? And I felt bad, What did I do? He goes, hey, God darn it, Boal, you have to earn the rights. You have to earn the right for me to speak to you or interview you, and walked away. He hurt me. I said, oh, okay, man.
Well, I'm going to earn it then.
I said, okay, man. So my sophomore year, they said it wouldn't be a sophomore make the first two teams. And I sat in my room with Bill Munson and said, man, I'm going to make this team. They started me, they had 12 teams. I was on the 12th team. You had to work your way up. And I started working my way up, and I got to about the third. I had broke my finger, and I wouldn't tell the trainer because I figured he'd put me back down on the next thing. I don't work. I used to ask one of the kids, one of the white kids, can you get me some tape? And I used to tape my finger up myself, And finally, I worked my way up to the third team, and they said, no. Sid Hartman said, hey, it's not going to be a sophomore make the first two teams. He wrote that in his paper. And the next thing I know, one of the kids went in and told Snapper, the trainer, I still remember the trainer, God almighty, he said, Bobby Boal got his finger, he said, I think his finger's broken in his hand, I've been giving him tape. Snapper said, really? He comes out there and told me, Boal, bring your butt in here. Come here, let me see what you. I said, no, I'm okay. Oh, okay. I didn't want to let nobody know. I said, no, I'm okay. He looked at it, taped it up. I goes back on the field. Next thing I know, I'm on the second team. And Sid Hartman, he ain't said nothing. And I said, I'm beating everybody in front of me. Boom, boom, boom. And when the game started, the first game, the Minnesota started that year, Coach Woman told the coach, said, hey, listen, you go down and tell Boal he's starting. He came down there at the game. I'm sitting there, and I told Bill, I was sad, man. I go, oh, man, I know I made this team. I know it. That was my goal. And when he told me that I was starting, I started every game. And Sid came up to me one day, hey, Boal, come here, I want to interview you. I told him, I said, Sid, look at me. You have to earn your right and walk away from me, And he just said, what? He followed me around. I wouldn't talk to him. That's a true story.
I believe you.
Hey, I told him that.
Absolutely, yeah.
My sophomore year.
That's great.
We made it Big Ten, Rose Bowl.
Right. You were always you're always motivated. You always like to have the carrot out in front of you. You always had that in the back of your mind. So you graduate, and the teams are coming around to talk about Minnesota grabs you, and how did the Chiefs thing happen for you?
Well, it wasn't the Chiefs. It was Dallas, Texas.
They were the Dallas Texans. I'm sorry, Dallas Texans. Then that's right.
It was Dallas, Texas.
That's right. Exactly.
I didn't know anything about them, and I never talked to anybody but Lamar. He came to Minnesota.
The owner of the team.
Yeah, he came to Minnesota, and when he came to Minnesota, he came over and visit. I said, Lamar Hunt. Okay, Lamar Hunt. I'm just looking around. Okay, Lamar Hunt.
Who's Lamar Hunt?
Yeah. At that time, I think Lamar was like 29 years old.
Yeah, he was. Yes.
And I'm going like, okay. He said, all right. He said, hey, Boal said, where's the good ice cream place? He loves ice cream.
Yeah.
I took him down University Avenue, got him some ice cream. He said, I want you to be part of my family. So your family? He said, yeah, Dallas, Texas team. I said, oh, yeah. I just went like, yeah, I'm going along with him, man.
Sure.
Yeah. And that's how he said, what is it going to take to get you? I don't know. I have no idea. Don Knutson and Mr. Lane. Don Knutson is a real estate company that built half it down. He built the dome and all that, all the high rise.
Down in Minneapolis.
Yeah, in Minneapolis. And he owned about 3 mortgage companies, 4 or 5 mortgage companies and all that. He became like a father to me. He told my dad, he said, I'll keep him straight.
Right.
And he was like a father. He's the one that negotiated the contract. I didn't have no agent.
And it's funny, he's the Minneapolis guy, and he's negotiating a contract with the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm sorry, the Dallas Texans, and not the Minnesota Vikings. Yeah. Which probably made a few people irate. Did you have any trepidations at all of going back to the South? Okay, Dallas, Texas it's a little different than being in Alabama, Mississippi, North or South Carolina, or Georgia.
I've been out of the South for about 4 years.
Yeah, right. So you sort of forgot.
I said, no, I'm going down south. I said, oh, well, I didn't look at it that way. I guess I just okay, because I was just a young kid.
Sure.
I'm from
22 years old.
Yeah, I'm down there going, wow, what's going on? I had no idea. Yeah. So I relied on Don. Don said, nah, so he the one that did the contracts. I mean, talked to. He also talked to Sid Hartman and all that. So he said, I'm looking out for Bobby's welfare.
Yeah.
What's best for him? Whether it's Minnesota
or Dallas, Texans.
Dallas, Texas.
And I think Lamar sold John when he said family.
He said family.
Yeah, I think that was.
He said, I want you to be part of the family. And he never did push it or nothing like that, what it's going to take. And I, went back and forth, and I didn't say nothing hard. And Don just said that, Lamar said, you'd like to know what's going to happen.
Yeah. Was the price better?
Huh?
Was the salary a little bit better in Minnesota was offering, or?
Well, I don't know if the salary, because I didn't get into all that, because the thing is that they were going back and forth. They didn't go back and forth, just throwing numbers. They just asked me, at the time, I'm sitting on the table like this, head open my mouth. And Don looked at me and said, tell me, Bill, what do you think you want to make? That's how he looked at me, and I go, I don't know. I just looked up in the sky and said, 25,000. He said, and Don looked at me and said, well, what did you make this last year? I said, because I worked for him.
Yeah, right, exactly, yeah.
In the summertime, that's the only time you can work, I said, I don't know, I think I made 2,000. He said, He laughed. He said, 2,000, huh? 2,000 to 25,000. Oh, well, God, that's a big job. And he laughed about it, And Lamar ain't said nothing,
Yeah.
But to see what I asked for, though, and Coach Warmott told me, if the Vikings want to sign me, make sure that I get at least 3-year contract and no cut, guaranteed.
Money's guaranteed.
And I said,
and that was a very unusual contract in those days.
The NFL don't give it.
Right.
And Van Brockham was the coach, and him and Van Brockham was tight. But he took me in his office and closed the door and locked the door and told me, if the Vikings don't give you a guarantee for the 3 years, he said, don't take it.
And they didn't.
And they gave me a 3-year contract, but they said, Van Brockham said, we don't guarantee. NFL don't guarantee.
If you got hurt, you wouldn't have collected on the remainder of your contract.
You wouldn't get that, and he can cut me anytime.
Right.
At that time, you don't have that many blacks playing in the NFL.
Right.
And you don't have no black quarterbacks playing in the NFL. You don't, nothing. So I'm sitting there and going, okay. And Van Brockham kept saying, we'll take care of it. We'll take care of it. But they didn't. Lamar comes in and said, hey, what is it? And Don said, we don't know if you're going to be around. The league has been around for 2 years. How long are you going to last? He said, we're going to be here. And that's when he asked Lamar, said, whatever the contract is, you going to guarantee it? He said, if that's what it takes, I'll guarantee it. He said, no, we want you personally guarantee a contract.
and he did. He did do that.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Hank Stram, your great head coach back there, he always said Bobby Bell could have played all 22 positions and been all-time, all AFL at any one of those positions that he played. That was high praise from the mentor.
Oh yeah, that was, that's I don't know, like I said, Lamar, and it was just. I think about it all the time. When we did, and Don told me, he said, you need to sign a contract no later than December 31st. And I said, well, I don't know why. Back then, that was 1962. My contract signed in 1962 because I didn't make no money then. The bonus and all that stuff, it goes back in that.
Right.
And then my first year would be 63. And that's when they moved to Kansas City. But see, I was sitting there, and when we agreed on a contract with Lamar in his office, and Sid Hartman went crazy trying to find me because he saw the Vikings had their luncheon, and nobody was talking to Bobby Bell, and he already knew. I told him I was signing the contract before the 31st, and he looked around and said, I don't see nobody signing. He went up there and said, Bobby Bell, he said, I know Lamar's in town. I said, nobody's talking to Bobby Bell. He found me. He called me and said, Bobby, whatever it is, I will get me some business guys to take care of the contract.
Yeah, the rest in Minnesota.
Yeah. I said, oh, done. I went home. But I ended up signing. I didn't sign nothing because Lamar didn't have a contract.
Right. He is a man of his word, which you found out.
I shook his hand. I shook his hand in his office, in his office, and I looked at Don, and I said, Don, no ink and no sign. And Don looked at me and he shook your hand.
Shook your hand.
He said, hey, that's the deal.
Right.
That's the man's word.
Well,
he gets on the plane with me going to New York. I'm going to New York. I said, okay. He said, where are you going tomorrow? I said, I got to fly to New York. I'm signing this, boom, boom, gone. He said, oh, I got to go to New York too. We both flew on the same plane to Kennedy Airport.
Wow. He
asked me, he said, how they picking you up? I said, no, I'm catching the cab. He thought they were going to have a limo. He's going to ride with me in the limo.
Instead, you ended up riding with him in a cab, right?
In a cab, and go through the toll. At that time, in 1962, I'm going to Ed Sullivan, Dunn, and
you're going to the All-American show, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I go, cab. And the guy going to the toll, he reached over and said, you got to pay for the toll. And I looked at Lamar. He ain't moved. He's sitting in the back seat. I reached in my pocket and gave him 15. I reached up, I think it was 15. It was like 15 cents or something like that, I gave the cab out 15 cents. He went to Lamar Hunt's hotel first. He said, you got some cash on you? I'm sitting in the taxi. He knocked on. I said, yeah. He said, okay.
And left.
He got go to the room.
He's paying you $25,000. You can at least afford that.
He goes down to I go to my hotel. I run in my hotel. I went up to my hotel room. I get to my room. I called Don. I said, Don, God Almighty, did I do the right thing? Don said, yeah, you did the right thing. I said, Simon, Lamar? I said, no, Lamar Hunt is broke. He has no money. And Don said, what are you talking about? I had to pay for the cab and the toll. He didn't have no money. True story. Guess when he paid me?
When?
When I turned 60. He always write, you ever seen his writing?
I've seen him write his little notes.
Little notes and stuff?
All the time. He
writes, I get my birthday count when I turned 60. He had 15 cents taped in it. I swear to God. I got that. I showed it to Clark about 4 years ago. I said, I want to show you something. Wow. I took it with me to the Arrowhead. He looked at me and go, oh, you got to be kidding me. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, his dad also he flew coach. He was notorious for.
Oh, yeah.
He was one of the richest men in the world. Okay,
Hey.
you know Lamar Hunt. It's the Hunt family and the whole deal, and he's one of the richest men. And he flew coach all the time. He wore the same sport coat. He had that one blue blazer he wore all the time.
Same shoes.
Same shoes. The whole.
I know.
He was unbelievable.
I've spent a lot of time with him at different functions and stuff. I mean, I came out of Dallas and I did a function down there on Wednesday. The last plane, I caught the last plane coming back to Kansas City, Brandon at that time. And look, and I was coming out, sitting there, and Lamar walks up. He's coming to Kansas City too. He always come on Wednesday, you know, because he lived down there. He comes up here on Wednesday, spend the, 3 or 4 days.
Arrowhead had that suite. It's like a home. There's like a Hunt family home inside Arrowhead.
Yeah, and so I'm sitting there going like, wow. And I'm going like, wow. Lamar walks in. I said, hey. He's sitting there. I said, Lamar. He said, where you going? He said, I'm going to Kansas City. He said, I'm going too. You going to? Yeah, same plane. Oh, that's good. You sit there. I said, Lamar, give me your ticket. I said, let's get a ticket together. And he said, okay. I went up to the thing. And the guy had kicked me up to first class.
Yeah.
So the guy gave me a ticket. I said, this is Lamar Hunt. He said, why? Oh, what's he doing the coach anyway? This guy owns
he owns Kansas City Chiefs now.
I gave him the ticket. So he had 2 seats in the first class. Gets on the plane. Lamar's in front of me. He's walking through the plane. He walked through first class. I said, Lamar, where you going? He said, oh, I'm back here. I said, Lamar, and I told him, I said, only 2 seats they had is sitting right here that we sat together. He said, not back here? I said, no, they're right here. He sat there.
That's amazing.
He sat there.
He was really an amazing guy. So they transitioned from Dallas to Kansas City. You're involved in the transition. You get to Kansas City, and you're making good money for that day. Now you're doing pretty well. I know you guys all ended up working off seasons and stuff like that.
Money?
Well, it's okay for that time. We were up to 35, 45,000 right in that area.
No.
35?
No, man.
Well, you went out to go buy a house.
No, let's go back to going back to Don Knutson,
Okay, yeah.
I had I think it was $6,900 in my check for 13 years. Every year from the Chiefs. My first job was working for General Motors full time. And Dunn had them to defer my other money.
Oh, they were deferring all the other money. Okay.
They deferred the money until I got out of football.
Okay.
And then when I got out of football,
that was very smart.
They had to pay me for the next 10 years.
Okay. So you pushed it all down the road.
Yeah, that was in 1962.
Right.
And I told Don I had to go get me a job, man. 6,000. And that's why, I worked for General Motors.
Yeah, right. And then
full times.
Right. And then you get up here and you're going to settle in. You know you're going to be here for a while, and you make an investment, and you're going to try to buy a house. Explain the house buying situation here in Kansas
City. That was a good
City.
deal, man. That was everybody loved me, man. Everybody wanted me to move in the neighborhood.
He says tongue in cheek. Yes, go ahead. Yeah, right. Yeah, Bobby, come on down there.
Yeah, come on down here, Bobby. Right. Anywhere you want to go, man. That's in 1963, man.
Right.
You believe that?
No, I don't believe that at all. Nah. You had a little bit of experience to try to get that house.
Well, I built a house. Everybody thought I was going to Minnesota. Don Knutson Construction Company. He set me up, and they built me. I got a house in White Bear Lake. Everybody thought I was going to Minnesota. Now that wasn't happening. I came to Kansas City, and Kansas City. Couldn't find a place to stay. It was very difficult. I looked at about 200 some houses. I couldn't do it. My first year here, I had a house there off of I-70. And I brought my family down, and they was there for a month. We couldn't live there.
Right.
Sent them back. They stayed up there during the season. I huffed it out, and then next thing I do, the next year I found a place there. I got with the the Robinson. You know where Satchel Paige Stadium?
Yes,
And I got to work with some guy. We put up a new apartment building right in next to Satchel Paige. So I stayed there for about a year and a half. And ended up, I got to go buy a house. I looked out Lee Summit, Grandview. Then I went down past 63rd Street. Went down past there out in Grandview. Then I ended up, I didn't know where Overland Park, went out in Overland Park and all those. I mean, I looked at the house and, hey, I like this house, you know. The house is sold.
They told you the house was sold.
Well, they said, yeah, they said the house is sold. When I leave, and I call them up, I said, what about the house? They said, no, they sold the house. You know, every house I looked at, they sold.
I gotcha, yeah.
They sold about 250 houses because of me. So, you know, that went on and on, you know. No, you couldn't do it. And I finally looked at a house out on Delmar.
In Overland Park, right?
Overland Park, Fair Village. Who lives down the street from me? Who was down the street on Delmar?
I'm not sure.
Oh, you gotta know that.
Was it Hank?
Yeah.
It was Hank was right.
He was about 4 blocks down on Delmar. So I looked at a house on Delmar. Brand new house. Looked at it. I wrote a check, gave the guy, and the first guy that showed it, that guy that showed me the house, that was his first house. He just passed it. He just got his license. And he showed the first house to me, his license. I looked at it, 4 bedrooms. I said, I'll take it. Signed the check, signed the paper. He jumped up and down and went back down to Crow Brothers and said, hey, guys, look.
I just sold this house.
I sold the first house I showed. And he jumped. They said, wow, who did you sell it to? I sold it to a Chief player. Everybody said, oh, man, that's great. They was hollering, screaming, wow. And the guy said, well, who was it? And the guy that ran the place, the head manager up there, he's in his office. He said, oh, yeah, Bobby Bell. And the door, boom. And the guy comes out and said, you can't sell that house, son. That's what he told the guy. He said, why? He said, hey, man, here it is, paperwork. He's got his loan and everything ready to go. And the guy said, you can't sell that house, son. So I waited a week, 2 weeks, and the guy said, no, you don't have no problem. I'm shipping my stuff down, thinking, because all I need was the address. And stuff.
Right.
And the guy, a week went by. I worked for General Motors. He finally called me and said, Bobby, meet me down in the plaza for lunch. I met him down in the plaza for lunch. He said, I can't sell you the house. They won't let me sell you the house. I went, oh, why not? I said, you gave it. What's wrong? Can't sell it. He didn't know how to approach me.
No, I know. What to say. Exactly, yeah.
He didn't know how to.
He was embarrassed.
And that went on. But he went and told the owner, the guy that built the house, the builder, Taylor, told him, say, hey, sold your house. The guy said, oh, yeah, who you sell to? Bobby Bell. Yeah. The guy said, okay, fine. He plays for the Chiefs. He said, oh, that's no problem. Sell it.
Right.
That went on for about 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And I get a phone call later from Taylor, the guy that built the house. Him and his wife came over there and Satchel Paige down there on the thing. Pulled in there, sat in my living room and said, I don't know what to tell you. He said, but you can get the house from me. You have your lawyer, I have my lawyer. He said, draw up the papers like I'm rich. I rent the house to you. They can't stop me. I'll rent you the house till you get it straightened out. I said, I got my truckload coming down and all that stuff.
Yeah.
He said, hey, me and my wife said, you can have the house. They blackballed him for that.
Wow.
And I talked to his son about 2, 3, or 4 months ago. I talked to him. But he passed away, man. And I ended up moving there. In the neighborhood, you know.
Was it tough at first?
Oh, yeah, it's tough. You know, but the neighbors just saying, oh, man, everything's going down.
Yeah, right.
Everything, we can't have none of that's going on. And they had a meeting. You know, they had a big meeting. You know, they gave the kids the flyer to pass out to all the houses. We're having a big meeting. We had to call a big meeting, homeowners meeting. The kid put one on my door. He
didn't know.
He didn't know. Right. Put it on my door. So I waited until they all got in there. And
they got into the meeting, right?
Yeah, they got all in the meeting, getting ready to start the meeting. I knocked on the door. I said, hey, guys, come on, let me open the door. And open the door, and they go, ah. They said, oh. He said, well, I tell you what. We said, everybody's not here, so we're going to have to call them.
Oh, wow.
I said, looks like everybody's here to me. You know, they called the meeting.
The amazing thing, you were not intimidated, that's for sure. You just weren't, you know, that's just not you, you know, to get a wrong righted.
What really upset me is that when they poisoned my dog in my neighborhood.
I didn't know
I had a
that.
St. Bernard, and the dog, everybody loved him. The kids would come take a walk. You know, I had a fence and lock. The kids would come by and do it. But somebody in the neighborhood decided to, you know.
Yeah.
And I was at training camp. And I told Buck, I said, Buck, something's wrong. I told him, I said, you tell Coach Stram I'm going home. I got a problem. Something's wrong.
You just had a feeling.
I had that feeling. I drove up from Liberty, Missouri, came in and pushed the button on my garage door. My dog, Puppy Toe, can come in the back door through the garage into the house. In her house, we had a half bath off the kitchen, tile floor. That's where she would lay. Big old St. Bernard.
Wow.
And when I pushed the button, she was laying there in the garage. And I said, oh, man, what's wrong? Because, hey, I spent a lot of money on keeping her, and the veteran, you know, took care of it. And
that breaks my heart.
Oh, man, it was. And next thing I know, the vet said, I said, what was wrong? He said, nothing. Your dog's in good shape. He did an autopsy, found that she was poisoned.
Yeah.
God, I can't believe it.
Yeah, well, you know, and none of those things chased you away. So I think that's the biggest thing.
My two kids went to Trailwood out there on 95th Street. They went to school over there. And so, hey, went to school.
Yeah.
You know, on my way from 95th Street, Swope Park was a training facility.
Back in those days, yeah.
Every time I went down 95th Street to practice, I come home, head down 95th Street, going out to Swope Parkway. Before I get to State Line,
here comes the cop car. Yeah,
pulls me over.
Yeah, what are you doing here?
What are you doing? You know, let me see your license.
Wow.
I said, I'm going to practice. Got to go. Okay. Couldn't do anything. Then I go, boom. And sometimes the guy say he's on his way, and they'll stop me twice before I go. They did that until I got teed off one day, and I told him, the guy stopped me. I went down to Lee Woods and told the guy, that's Lee Woods. I said, hey. I walked in, I said, hey, the next time you guys stop me, I said, you better bring your troops. Because I said, it's going to be a big fight going on. I said, you guys are harassing, you can't do it. And the guy's sitting there, and you can hear, and in the office, everything, you know.
Everything stopped.
Stop. Oh, you can hear a rat pissing on cotton in there. It was so quiet, you know. And my voice was going in, and the guy said, I'll check into that. This is not going to happen. I say, I'm letting you know right now. And I walked out. The next time somebody stopped me, I was down on Leewood. I come down, pulled over. The guy said, uh-oh, this is about 2 or 3 weeks later. The guy pulls up, license. I said, what did I do? Give me your license. I said, what did I do? I gave him your license. He goes back there in the dispatch. He called his number and said, check this guy out. black guy sitting up here, just check him out. And the guy said, who is it? He said, Bobby. He said, Bobby Bell. He said, go take his license back and give it to him. And tell him you apologize. I said, hey, man, I'm sorry I stopped you. He said, don't do it. And this guy came back up and said, here you go, Mr. Bell. Take your license. He said, mistake. You can go. You can go. Get me out of there. Okay, what did I do? No, everything okay. Go. Never stopped me anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, and Lamar Hunt, too, that didn't stop him. And you were a great mentor for the rest of the guys who followed you in to the Kansas City Chiefs, coming, African-American players, okay, who were going to make the real difference for the Kansas City Chiefs back in those days, to let them know, we're going to stand up to this and we're not going to do this anymore. And you're here. This is our football team. He's our coach. He's our owner. And, we're going to get this thing, we're going to do this and do it the right way.
Well, I tell people all the time the best thing ever happened to the NFL is Lamar starting the AFL.
Yes.
That's the best thing, especially for the blacks. It wouldn't be where it is today. And I tell people that all the time. And because at that time, the NFL people try to blackball. They try to blackball me because anything I try to do, they try to because I was one of the first guys that comes up.
Right.
And then went to the All-Star game. You should have, about the All-Star in '63, we beat the Green Bay Packers.
Right.
We had about 17 or 18 blacks there on the team.
Right.
And
the Packers probably can't remember hardly one back in the days with Vince Lombardi. There were a couple, but it wasn't predominant.
No. It was, the story is, I've been around too long, and I got the opportunity to meet a lot of the blacks and stuff that came out before me and after me, in the same time, And that year in 1963, went to Chicago and beat the Green Bay Packers there.
Right.
Dave Robinson, right. Tight end for Penn State, All-American, black.
Right.
At the All-Star game, Otto Graham told me that I couldn't play. He told Dave Robinson he couldn't play tight end. He said, no. He made me go down and play linebacker instead of tackle. He called Coach Woman and Coach Stram told him, you guys wasted your money. This guy ain't no good. And for some reason, I don't know what happened there, he also told me to go play linebacker. Leroy Jordan was the middle linebacker.
Oh, gosh.
Okay, I went down there. I'm standing there watching the guy play. I watch him. I see what he's doing. That's how I learned. Next thing, Dave Robinson's down there. He's playing linebacker. he's
lost.
He's out there, too. And next thing you know, wow. Guess who we ended up playing in the game and beat the Green Bay Packers? Leroy Jordan was the middle linebacker. Me and Dave Robinson pushed the other two linebackers out.
Right.
We kicked them all over the field. All over the field. And Dave Robinson told me at the Hall of Fame a few years, about 10 years ago, told me, he said, I want to tell you a story about what Vince Lombardi said to the group. Because he went to he was drafted by Green Bay.
Right, he was.
He went there, Mm-hmm. He said, Vince Lombardi walks into the locker room, walks in that room, in the meeting room with everybody after we done beat the crap out of him, the All-Star. He walks in there and sat down. He said, God darn you guys, I'm going to tell you something. He said, if I had that other team, the college All-Stars, with them players, I will win the championship for the next 5 years, and walked out the door and slammed the door. And I said, why would he say that? And Dave said, I don't know, man. He scared everybody to death, We had about 17 blacks that played that whole game,
right.
Running backs, Terry Baker.
Yeah, he was a quarterback out of Oregon, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oregon State, one of the two.
He's the one that beat me out for the Heisman.
Yes, right. That was his year, yeah.
He never played.
Never.
He didn't play in the All-Star game. Vanderkill got most valuable player. He's a quarterback. Terry Baker never got in the game.
Amazing.
Never got in the game, but he's supposed to be the. Yeah. And I checked into the All-Star game, Guess who played in the All-Star game? Back then, Jim Brown played in the All-Star game. He never played in the All-Star game. Van Brocken would not play.
Wouldn't let him play.
Would not let him play.
Yeah. And the difference now is
Bobby Mitchell played in the All-Star.
that's right.
He never got a chance to play. Leroy Kelly played in the All-Star. We were sitting at the table at the Hall of Fame, and we started talking. I can name you 5 guys, blacks, never played in it, and all of us are sitting there in the Hall of Fame.
Right. It's absolutely amazing.
And that's what happened there. You know, you got Tony Dungy. I recruited him at Minnesota as quarterback. Tony Dungy. He went to Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
He played defensive back. They wouldn't play him quarterback. Sandy Stevens came out. Cleveland Browns said, no, they're not going to play you. Jim Brown called Sandy and said, you're not going to play quarterback. Sandy said, I'm going to play quarterback. He went to Canada and won the Great Cup 3 years in a row.
Right.
Warren Moon did the same thing.
Yeah. Warren Moon before he came down here because they wouldn't let him play.
He said, I want to
black
play
athlete play quarterback.
Yeah. That was the thing. You know, I tell people that. I say, man, the best thing ever was Lamar starting the AFL.
Yeah.
And also, I've been to all the Super Bowl games. I played in the first and played in the fourth, and I've been to them all. Last year I went to this past year is the best I seen. I enjoyed the Super Bowl. I sat in the stands in the end zone down there, and the mayor sat behind me, and I was going upstairs. I didn't go. I stayed there and watched the game, jumping up and down with the fans, and going to the bathroom, wait for 10 hours to get to the bathroom and stuff like that. You know, to see 2 black quarterbacks play at the Super Bowl. That's the top of mine right there, man. That's it. I couldn't believe it, and they can't do it. And that's what happened, you know. And that's why the Chiefs had it all. We had, look at the blacks that came. Lamar. That's what the AFL started recruiting all the blacks.
Buck
They're all
Buchanan,
Americans.
Will Lanier.
Oh my God.
I mean, the list is.
Emmett Thompson. I asked
Emmett
these guys,
Thomas.
why they come? Well, we came to Kansas City. We came to the AFL because, hey, they would play us. They didn't care to play us.
Right.
That's what happened. I know guys that went to Green Bay. They said we got 2 blacks. He said we can't take 3. Bobby Mitchell was the first black player at Washington Redskins. They didn't play him. Couldn't play.
It's amazing stuff. And you laid the groundwork for a lot of that. And you told the story about the house buying situation, but for you stayed here. I mean, you could have gone anywhere, basically lived, but we talk about this, that there's just something about Kansas City.
Well,
you stayed here and you've lived here and you've done all these.
I didn't want to run. Why run from stuff? You can run all over the place. What are you going to do? During the Martin Luther King got shot, spray him. We had our guys go out and talk to the people. Don't be rude. Don't be tearing up the city. Don't be doing it. We walked out there. We were all over the city.
Right.
And we mingled with the people.
Right.
I mean, we were all over the city. I mean, the fans could come up to us all the time, We live in a neighborhood, you meet everybody. Hey, we're not going to bite nobody. I went out in the Owen Park. I think I was the first black to move out there. I got Buck to come out there. And Leewood, I looked at a house in Leewood and I couldn't do it. And I had guys go out there that were going to buy the house and, sell it to me, So I said, no, we don't need that, We got to stop this.
We got to stand up for ourselves.
Absolutely. In the plaza, Oh my gosh! You go down the plaza, you couldn't go. They had a red zone. I went through all that stuff. I tell people all the time. I said, don't tell me what it's like. Hey, I came from the South. I rode in the back of the bus. I had bathrooms I couldn't go. A water fountain you couldn't go. I couldn't even walk in the restaurants. You eat, And I said, 2 years ago they gave me the key to the city in Shelby. Anything I want. And the first time, I'm all over the place, but the first time I went home one time from Minnesota, my brother picked me up at the airport, I think it was my senior year or something. I said, I guess get some barbecue, Red Bridges barbecue. And we coming from Charlotte on 74. In fact, the restaurant's still there. And he pulled up, my brother, he's a mortician, he passed away, God rest his soul, 2 months ago. And he pulls up in Red Bridges. I jumps out without even thinking. I jumped out. I said, "Oh man, I got to get some of this barbecue," and ran in the front door. I ran in the front door of the place, and I hit the door, boom, and my brother go, "Hey boy, where you going? You can't go in there." I said, I didn't even think. I did not think. I ran in there. When I walked in, the people that was there, and I worked there until I went to college. Mm-hmm. And Miss Bridger was running the cash register. She said, "Oh, Bobby," She didn't realize. She ran up and gave me a hug without even thinking. And everybody in the restaurant was packed, and everybody started, "Oh, Bobby, no, yeah." And everybody just stopped, just freeze,
Everybody dropped their brisket.
Yeah, they go, "Oh." And everybody started asking the waitress, "Who is that? Don't you know that's Bobby Bell? He's one of us. I'm one of them now."
Unbelievable. You have done just, we're so glad you're here and that you stayed here, and we've kept you long enough. But, you're one of the reasons that we started this podcast, because there's people like you that live here and have made your home here despite everything else that happened to you, because there is just something about Kansas City. Bobby, I appreciate your time. Love you, man. You're a great guy.
Hey,
I know my wife just loves you to death. And before I let you go, I will say it was 4 or 5 years ago that you were the first one. My wife comes, she just started talking to you and all this stuff, and she said, you could probably live anywhere you wanted to live. You're Bobby Bell and Pro Football Hall of Fame and et cetera, et cetera. And she asked you, she said, why'd you stay in Kansas City? And you said, because there's just something about Kansas City. And that's where this all came from.
Something about it's people.
It's the people.
You got some good people here, but you got some bad ones too.
Oh yeah, in every city.
Yeah. But the thing is, though, I enjoy it and got a lot of friends here. And the thing that I enjoy is that I can get, like other day I walked out, and I haven't seen some of these people in a long time. They go, "Oh, you remember me?" And I said, "Well, back when I moved out in Overland Park." They go, "Yeah,
we were your neighbor."
But that's you just said it. They say, "Was your neighbor out there, and your son, at Trailwood, He said, I had a swimming pool. I put in a swimming pool, and they used to come swim. I told them they used to go swim in my food. They're going to have to keep cleaners, And I had guys that cut the grass, and the kids that cut my grass. He said, "Can me and my family come, my brothers and stuff, comes swims after we get through and stuff?" I said, "Yeah, you can do that. I don't care." So one day I pulled up to the house, I said, I heard all this noise, I went out, I looked out my patio, I looked out, there's about 6, 7, 8 people out there in the pool, 9, 10. I go, "Wait a minute." I said, "Hey, man, I asked you to invite the neighbor." He said, "No, these are my brothers." I said, "Okay." He said, "We'll get ready to leave." I said, "No, that's okay."
God bless you, man.
Oh, man.
Hang in there. We love you.
Oh, I love you, man. I love the city. I love the city. I'm still here. Hey, man, I've been here, God almighty, 60-some years, man.
Yeah, I've been here since 81. It's home.
Yeah.
It is home.
And the thing about it, look at the people that leave, some of the players that leave and go play somewhere else, and end up coming back here.
They all come back here. You know why? Because there's just something about Kansas City.
Kansas City.
Thank you, Bobby Bell.
All right.